Hey, Eugene D'Souza here from SparksPlayMedia.com, and in this video, you're going to learn how to start an online clothing store that makes you loads of sales. In fact, it's going to be the exact same process that multi-million-dollar online clothing boutiques and fashion brands have used to scale their businesses up to $400 million in sales in 1 year. Now, I need to warn you, what you're going to learn in this video is like nothing else that you would have ever found online. No one else is willing to share this information with you. What I'm not going to do is waste your time by repeating information that everyone else has already gone ahead and shared and still hasn't given you the answers that you need in order to start an online clothing store today. Instead, I'm going to bring to you over 10 years of sales experience and doing over $200 million in sales. And I'm going to share some of the strategies that I've used to generate those sales to help you start your online clothing store today. And if you stay till the end, I'm going to share with you 7 multi-million-dollar online clothing fashion brands, their e-commerce platforms that they use, the revenue that they do, as well as the sub-niche in the apparel industry that they've gone ahead and dominated so that you can go ahead and model after them and get your empire started. I'd like to ask you to go ahead and smash that like button, drop a comment down below, as well as subscribe and turn the notification bell on. The reason being is because you are currently watching part 1 of a 4-part free mini course on how to start an online clothing store. And what we're going to do is over the next few videos, we are going to be going through the business model, how to pick a product, how to source it, as well as actually building an online clothing store. And you're going to be able to look over my shoulder, and one lucky subscriber is actually going to win that exact store that I build completely for free. And I'll give you the details and the link to enter at the end of this video. Now, if that sounds exciting to you, keep on watching so that you don't make the same mistakes that other people have made trying to start an online clothing store. Awesome. So let's get into the first section of how to start an online clothing store. This is going to be a foundational piece of research and just work that you need to do. This is what separates the guys and girls that are going to make this a success and those that are not. Many times people will just go ahead and they will throw some stuff online, they'll create a little e-commerce store and they'll fail. And they'll fail because they haven't done the foundational work. They don't know where to start, they don't know how to do research to actually check and test whether or not the market is viable. So let's get into that first piece, okay? Where I like to start is, funny enough, on something as simple as Google Trends, okay? And I like to try and use buying intent words that customers would, or prospects at least, would be searching online. Terms like buy clothes online or where to buy clothes online. And you can see that this is just filtered on the US from 2004 to the present, right? And this little dotted line over here shows that it's forecast to increase in search terms. And if you just scroll through here, you'll see the various states as well as other related queries. And this gives me other ideas on actually, how I can go ahead and, target this market or build into my strategy. Is it actually going after cheap clothes or expensive clothes or somewhere in the middle, right? Are people actually searching for clothes online and where to buy them online, right? And like just interesting things that you generally would not have thought of if you didn't actually do this homework. So let's head over and check now based on kids clothing, okay? And the reason why I've done that is because these are other search terms based on demographics. So for those of you that aren't into marketing and talk the lingo, demographics simply just refers to things like age and gender and so forth, okay? Now you'll see that I've already pre-populated this with 5 search terms for different sub niches essentially, or demographics. And you can see here that the one that seems to be standing out for me here, and it may be a really good indicator for us building out the next few lessons in this free mini course, is women's clothes online, right? So you can see here that this is for online women's clothing, and you'll see that this seems to have the highest search volume, and the little dotted line tells us that it's going to trend upwards, okay? So that would give me a really good indicator that that might be a market that I would want to enter just based on that search volume, okay? And you can again just scroll through here and you can see which states are searching for, which search terms. And you can see that one search term of online women's clothing is just dominating the searches, right? Even things like best women's clothes online tells me that women are looking to buy good clothing online, right? So this is something that many people, forget. They don't go and do this really, really basic homework, okay? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go ahead and then get into the next bit that many people just don't even think of, because either they've just never had the training or they don't, think this way. But I'd like you to consider going into actually looking at the market size and the market potential. And the way you do that is by looking for sites like Statista, BusinessWire, and some of the others. And I don't necessarily need to read this entire dossier and report. I can just simply look through here, because what I'm looking for is validation, right? I'm looking for validation that this niche, this market, is something that I want to enter into, okay? That there is enough room for many, many players, okay? Because a lot of people will look at a market and they will think, oh man, there's already people in there. There's already competition. It's way too competitive. I look at it the other way around, that when there's competition in the market, it shows that there are buyers, there are customers for what you're selling. To me, that's a positive indicator, right? So let's head back over now, and I'm going to take you through just some of the metrics that I quickly look for. So I look for how big, how large the market is, right? So the size of the global apparel market in 2020 was $1.5 trillion. Yes, $1.5 trillion, which is huge, right? So the next thing is, has the market been growing? So since 2015 to 2020, the market has grown 2%. Now, 2% may not sound like a lot, but 2% on a $1 trillion market is huge. That tells me that there's more than enough room to actually play in, okay? Now, let's go ahead and dig back in, okay, to some of the other stats, okay, and some of the other facts that I look for. So things like key apparel markets, okay, so women's wear is one of the markets that leads. Now, if you wanted to go and supply apparel in the Chinese market, that seems to be quite a large market, okay? Now remember, it depends what type of business you're looking to start, okay? If you're looking to start a business, an online clothing store in the US, then disregard what you come across where you see, the market size in China and the potential in Europe or something like that, right? So I'd like to, show you that there are generally sub-niches that people don't even consider, right? And some of these sub-niches may be things like secondhand apparel, okay? Now, that might be a bit more difficult when it comes down to the part where we have to source product, okay? But underwear, all of us wear underwear, or at least a lot of us wear underwear, okay? Now, would you have thought to actually go into the underwear market, okay? Or lingerie, right? That's a huge market. And one of the examples that I'll share with you a little bit later is actually a company that kind of supplies similar product, right, to their audience, which is a woman-based audience, okay? Now, let's keep going through this because I want to just go through these really quickly because this just needs to prove validation for me, okay? And this year is the largest apparel market in the world is the United States. Now, if I go ahead and I compare that with the trends data that I got from Google, Google said that women's online clothing was going to be trending. And now I've just read that the US is the largest apparel market, okay? Now, with that, that tells me that I may want to consider starting a women's online clothing store that is focused, at least in the beginning, on doing business purely in the US just because the market size is bigger. Now, that could come with some cons, and the cons could be that it might be too competitive, but I know that there's a market there, okay? So let's flick back here and let's go to Business Wire. And again, I'm not looking through this in huge detail, okay? I would if I was going to be actually, throwing my own money at this. I'd like to understand it, but this gives me enough confirmation that there is market, that there is a market here and that we will do okay in this market. We might even do great in this market, right? When I start to see numbers like $1.1 billion in clothing and the apparel, globally, those are big numbers. For most people, if you could get a tiny percentage of that, right, that would be life-changing for you. Now, you may or may not have the aspirations to want to go and start the next Adidas or Nike or Louis Vuitton or something like that, right? You may. Or maybe you want to start a very niche, culturally based, mission-based movement in clothing, right? And that might be the thing that gets you going, right? So let's have a look here from Ibis World. And now you can see that some of this is blocked off, and that's okay. What they do is they share some facts over here on the side. Now this is the clothing boutiques market in the US from 2005 to 2026. And that means that we've still got about 4 to 5 years to go. Now, $18.4 billion for clothing boutiques in the US market in 2021. That's just in 2021, right? Which is huge. That tells me again that generally when we're talking about boutiques could be men, women, or kids, right? And generally, and whether this is just me or not, the word boutique tends to lend itself to a more expensive type of, quality clothing, etc. Okay. And if we flick back here, you'll see that clothing boutiques in the US market size had growth in 2021 of 1.6%. So this tells me that this is pretty cool, okay? That there is definitely space for us over here, okay? However, let's also be real, because has the clothing boutiques industry in the US grown or declined over the past 5 years? And yeah, Ibis World reports that the market size of the clothing boutiques industry in the US has declined by 6.5% per year on average between 2016 and 2021. However, the market size of the clothing boutiques industry is expected to increase in 2021 by 1.6%. This gives me a good feeling. I would still enter this market and give it a go. Now, on to many people's favorite website, okay? And that is Amazon. Good old faithful Amazon. Now, what I want to draw your attention to over here is you can use Amazon for market validation as well as product and market research. So as we can see on the home page of Amazon, some of the very first things we see here is clothing, which tells me that this is a really good thing to consider. I mean, even here, face masks kind of can be part of the apparel market, right? But these are things that I would look at, right? The fact that this is listed as, on the homepage tells me that this is really good. Now, what I would do is I would go and use my search terms that I've kind of started to figure out over the course of this research already. So I would use terms like women's clothing, kids clothing, men's clothing, okay, baby clothing, stuff that we would have used in Google Trends, and also some of the confirmation that we would have got through the other research reports that we've kind of just skimmed over. Yeah, right? So let's go and look for women's clothing. So women's clothing for me was something that stood out, right? So let's have a look here. There is some auto suggestions that Amazon has shared with us. So women's clothing bestsellers, trendy, summer, fashion, casual, plus size, under $10. Okay, so that again tells us
what people and women in particular are searching for. They're searching for tops. Okay, so we want to make a note of that. We'll also want to make a note that summer is probably something that women are looking to purchase clothing for, because that's either the season that they're currently in or the season that they are going into. Here's the other thing, is plus size clothing for women. Maybe something as a sub niche in women's clothing that you might want to focus your clothing efforts on, right, for your online clothing store. But even under $10, okay? Now again, it depends on how you want to position yourself. If you want to position yourself as a boutique, as a quality but well-priced or expensive brand, a premium brand, you may not want to offer stuff like that. But you may want to set up a brand that does cater for women's clothing under $10, right? Now, if you just scroll through here, you can see that there is particular clothing that seems to pop up here. It seems to be sportswear, athleisure wear, and very casual types of clothing. So that can guide us as well, okay? Now, this gives us some guidance as to what kind of women's clothing might be trending, okay? Now, this is quite a cool style that I'm just looking at, and the fact that it's a bestseller tells me that with this type of jewelry and these colors and so forth, that there's a particular like sub niche underneath this. This is a very like relaxed look, a very casual look, and I'm taking note of these kinds of things, right? I want to pay attention to this and see how I can, you know, not just go ahead and create an online clothing store for perhaps the bohemian subculture or sub niche, but seeing jewelry like this that is complemented with the outfit tells me that I could still make additional revenue and sales with accessories that complement that market. Because again, looking at this athleisure wear and this workout apparel for women, I need to also consider what else I can upsell and cross-sell with this clothing. So because this is predominantly in the athletic side of things, the exercise apparel side of things for women's clothing, then I would start to think about what else I could complement with these sales. And what I mean by that is, you know, selling fitness bands or exercise equipment along with this. But I'm quite liking this look and feel over here. Now, before we carry on, what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask you, and this is what I'm going to call the question of the day. Okay, I'm going to ask you, which type of online clothing store were you thinking of starting? Drop that down in the comments. I'd love to hear where your thoughts were before watching this video. Were you already leaning towards a women's clothing store? Were you leaning towards kids or men or babies clothing, right? And what you're thinking of doing now. I'd love to hear from you. So let's head over to one of my favorite tools. And that tool is going to be the business model canvas. And the business model canvas is something that the guys and girls at Strategizer have developed. It's something that I've used extensively in the past, and it's what we're going to use today to go ahead and plot out the various aspects of our online clothing store. Now, let's go ahead and get started. Customer segments. Your customer segments. Pretty simple to think about, but it is whether or not you're going to sell to males or females, or both, men, women, or children, or all of them. What about different races, or age groups, or cultural affiliations, and so forth? Are you going to sell locally in your own market? Are you going to sell globally? Hey, you could sell to everyone as well. You could sell across multiple geographies. Are you going to go ahead and sell clothing inside of the casual sector, or the formal sector, or a particular niche inside of those? So these are some of the things to think about from a customer segment perspective. And what about customer relationships? Are you going to use social media to develop customer relationships? What about your email marketing campaigns and building customer relationships that way? Or using your customer support desk to go ahead and foster long, loyal fans that are going to stick with you for many, many years to come? Or what about leveraging a brand ambassador program where you can essentially borrow the audience that is your ideal customer that other people have gone ahead and built already, okay? What about a value proposition? Could you go ahead and set up a value proposition that is unique and different from a product perspective. For example, is your product manufactured in a unique way? Have you gone and upcycled or recycled materials and created unique clothing that no one else is currently selling in the market? What about your pricing? Are you going to be expensive? Are you going to be cheap? Are you going to sell affordable quality clothing? What is that price and product mix going to look like in terms of your value proposition? Are you going to attach your brand to a particular cause or multiple causes? For example, are you going to go and support a certain charity because they go ahead and they do something really amazing that is close to your heart, or maybe close to the hearts of your desired customer, right? Because remember that if you could go ahead and contribute to a charity, your brand is now a force for good, but their customers could potentially be your customers, okay? Do you have exclusive intellectual property or licensing agreements? Can you, for example, go ahead and sell Marvel or DC Comics type of trademarked products? What about how you source your products and you distribute your products? Can you do it in a way that gives you a leg up over your competition? What about your channels and how you're actually going to meet your customer where they are and sell to them where they are? Is this purely going to be on your online store? Is it going to be with what they call headless commerce, where you set up a Facebook shop or an Instagram shop or a TikTok shop where you make your pins and your posts shoppable and you integrate your Shopify or big commerce platforms into these social media platforms? What about selling on marketplaces like Amazon or Takealot for my fellow South Africans? What about using an ambassador program as a channel to get this army of affiliates out there selling on your behalf and completely just being your virtual sales team and splitting commissions with them, right? That could be really cool. What about the key activities that this type of business and many other type of businesses need to consider doing? Things like sourcing products, okay? Pretty obvious. If you want to sell something, you need a product. What about community building or buying media? Now, media buying is just a fancy term for paid traffic, okay? Paid ads. Are you going to buy ads on Facebook, on Google, on YouTube, on TikTok, etc., right? On LinkedIn, for that matter. What about key partners? Could your suppliers be considered a key partner of yours? What about celebrities? Maybe you have local celebrities that you have a relationship with or could spark a relationship with, or influencers. What about models? Models could be a key partner for you. Key resources. Remember, key resources in the space of a normal physical bricks and mortar store would be the actual physical building, right? Online, you're going to need to consider your technology as being a key resource. And your technology could be your online store, your email marketing service provider, your payment gateway, and so forth. What about your sales data that you collect in the form of a Facebook pixel or Google audiences, etc.? How about a customer install base? And that might sound like a fancy term, but all that really is some kind of contact database, okay? Be that the emails of your customers, the cell phone numbers of your customers, that you can continually stay in touch with them and provide value, give them offers, and so forth. That's a key resource to many, many businesses. That's often one of the reasons why businesses get acquired, is because another company wants access to your customers. What about mentors? Is there somebody that you know of or could reach out to ask for advice in this particular market or niche that you're looking to go into? That if you run into an obstacle, they can help you because they've been there before. What about competitors? Now, this is obviously niche dependent. Now, if you go and pick men or women, there's going to be different competitors in that space. But later on, we'll go through some of the examples that I've gone ahead and researched, and I'll share with you some of these competitors that you can start to look at and model after. Let's have a look at the cost structure element of the business model canvas. Now, cost structure is very important. Many people don't even do this before they start any business. They just think online business is really easy. Starting an online store is really easy. I'm just going to build something and it's going to make money for me. And as easy as that is, it's not as simple as it sounds, because you need to treat it like a real business. And this is going to come in the form of the costs for your staff, your paid advertising, or creating content, or legal fees. And legal fees could come in the forms of supplier agreements or model release notes for your online clothing store. Or it could be setting up your business and actually getting incorporated. this could be many, many types of costs that you need to consider in the beginning. What about the revenue streams? Now you're probably going, Eugene, that's pretty obvious. It's an online clothing store. I'm going to make revenue and sales through selling clothing. Yes. So as much as you're right, I'd like to ask you to consider some other things. Remember that you could sell clothing, but you could also sell accessories. As well as selling accessories, you could sell a subscription service or access to a private members community where people discuss and show new fashion trends and clothing and stuff like that. Or they pay you a monthly subscription, very similar to like Amazon Prime, to get products with speedy delivery and shipment or at a higher discount, for example. So those could be revenue streams you could consider. Here's two things that many people do not consider when they are trying to build any type of business, and that is the social and environmental cost. Many people don't think about the impact that their business is going to cause on the environment. They have this attitude that it's not going to be my problem, it's going to be the problem of my children's 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 children. Now, as much as that may be true, I still like to be a conscious business, right? A socially conscious, environmentally conscious business. Now, this lends itself in this particular case to how will my clothing be produced? How will it be shipped and sourced? How will I discard of old clothing? How will my customers discard of old clothing? You don't really know the answer to that question, but if your clothing is made of some kind of biodegradable, recyclable material, then at least you know you're doing a good thing for the environment at the same time. What about your social and environmental benefits? Your business should be a force for good. Now, your business in this particular case could be that you ethically source products. You pay fair trade wages and value for the products that you buy. What about giving back to a cause? You know, a percentage of profits goes towards X, Y, or Z charity. Now, that generally could be tied into your value proposition, and not for you to do it in a manipulative or unethical way. I mean, build this into the fabric of your brand, because it's been said that millennials, especially now, are a lot more conscious in terms of their consumerism, and they will often buy from a brand that has a cause attached to it, which is really, really exciting to know of. Now, this is pretty much the business model canvas. Very simple, and it can be your business plan on one sheet. Many people won't go through the effort of doing this, but I promise you the people that do, that go ahead and apply and execute based on what they've done here, will often be the ones that succeed. And what I'd like to do is go ahead and share with you what you can expect in the next lesson of this 4-part mini course before I get into the 7 clothing brands that have completely dominated the online space. Now, in the next lesson, what I need you to do in order to be notified when this next lesson in this 4-part mini course drops is you need to go ahead and like, subscribe, and turn the notification bell on so that you can get notified. Now, in the next lesson, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a sub niche for you, and I'm going to go ahead and source the products with you. I'm going to show you where I can source them, ideas for sourcing them, as well as then planning out what the brand's identity is going to look like, so that in the 3rd lesson, which is where we're actually going to go ahead and build out this online store, yes, I'm going to pick an e-commerce platform and we are going to build out this online clothing store together. And the best part about it is I'm actually going to be giving this online store template away to one lucky subscriber. All you're going to have to go ahead and do is enter into the giveaway. And I'll leave the link to that giveaway in the description, because I'm so looking forward to helping someone just leapfrog their competition and get going really quickly. I'll go ahead and I'll transfer this online clothing store from the e-commerce platform that I've built it on into your account. So I'm really looking forward to doing this with you and sharing this with you. But for now, let's head over to the next section. I'll catch you there. Now we've got that out the way, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and jump into some of those really cool, exciting example stores. Okay, I've gone ahead and I've picked 7 of them. Okay, so the first one on the list is a really cool brand, and I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it's like Mini Rodini, all right? And they seem to focus on the kids fashion niche, right? So they've kind of drilled down a little bit and they found a sub niche, okay, for kids apparel. Now, I promised you that I would share what their estimated annual revenue is, as well as their e-commerce platform that they are built on, right? Having said that, let's dig into what they kind of provide. So yeah, you can see that it's children's clothing, and that's under the new arrivals section, okay? And you can see, yeah, exactly to my point, they've got an accessories section. Now, while I wait for this to load, I'm going to share with you that the annual business revenue for this online clothing store was estimated to be roughly $11 million, which is incredible, okay? And with that, you'll see that as much as they are in the kids apparel space, they are also into the kids accessories market, things like the caps and the backpacks and the socks and so forth, right? Now, their e-commerce platform of choice is Magento, and that's definitely an option to consider if you are looking to set up your own online clothing store, which I hope you are since you're watching this. Okay, and the next one is called Frankie's Bikinis. Now, it kind of says it in the name, and from that we can figure out exactly what they sell. They sell bikinis, go figure, right? Which again tells you what market they've focused on. They've gone ahead and they've focused on the women's market, right? And you can see here that they've got different models of different ethnicity in here, right? Different races, etc., which is really good because it helps customers that land on this site relate with the people that they see on the screen, okay? So Frankie's Bikinis has done about $2 million in annual revenue, and it's just an estimate, right? But they've gone ahead and they've built their e-commerce store, their online clothing store on Shopify, and they particularly use Shopify Plus. So their sub-niche is the swimwear and accessories market. So you can see here, just under, yeah, they've got accessories, different sets, and so forth. Let's head over to the third case study. And this is a site called Milk. Let's head over to this online clothing brand. This clothing brand is clearly in the kids apparel market. Now, with that, we can see that they've done, about $2.7 million in annual revenue, which is incredible. That's really, really good. And they have built their e-commerce store on Shopify, which is also incredibly cool. And you can see what they focus on. A very clean look. And I mean, they're just doing some really, really good things, but very simplistic, very good, very clean. And you can see they've kind of got their menu over here. And the fourth in our lineup is the Bohemian Traders. And this is a store that is built on big commerce, okay? And remember, something with this is that you can build any one of these stores on any platform. So if you had the idea, for Bohemian Traders, but you prefer Shopify, go ahead and build it on Shopify, or vice versa, right? If you saw a store that was built on Magento, go ahead and build it on BigCommerce. Now, the Bohemian Traders kind of has got my interest going, right? Because we've seen that women's online clothing is something that is big, as well as the US market is the largest apparel market. And from what I saw with Amazon, I quite liked that loose, casual, bohemian, looking clothing. So I quite like this. And the Bohemian Traders have done $8 million in annual revenue. At least that's an estimate, okay? So this is definitely something to consider. Now, I'm saving the biggest and largest store that has done the most amount of revenue for last. So keep watching to check out which brand that is. So the next online clothing store that we've got that I want to share with you is Beyond Retro. Really cool brand. Their colors, everything is so cool. And they have some really popular brands that they've listed, okay? So they've obviously gone ahead and found ways to, get the licenses and the resale rights for these brands, like we saw over here, being Nike and Adidas and Levi's and so forth. But this brand has done $13 million in estimated annual revenue. And they've kind of focused more on the vintage and secondhand clothing market. Now, if you remember what we saw in some of the previous reports, some of the previous reports showed that there was a global secondhand market, and that was actually quite a large market, right? So these guys are definitely tapping into that in some way. Now, this store has been built on Shopify Plus, and it's very, very neat. And as you can see, they tend to follow very similar themes. They have these, Instagram, user-generated testimonial kind of content at the bottom. They've got blog articles, as well as just really clean, crisp images, white backgrounds, and these colors here on the garage sale kind of matches their retro vibe, right? Now, 6th on our list is an online clothing store that is called Black Milk, which is a really cool name. I dig it. I dig their colors, but have a look at what they're doing. They have somehow gone ahead and also found a way to stock copyrighted and trademarked products, right? Things like Pokemon and so forth, they're trademarked, and you get into a lot of trouble if you didn't have the correct resale rights to sell these. So they figured out how to do that, and they've gone ahead and they've just blown up, and they've done really, really well. And when I say really, really well, I mean they've done $48 million in estimated annual revenue well, which is incredible if you think about it. So you might ask, what fashion niche they're in. I think it's pretty obvious. They're into women's fashion, okay? But outside of that, you may want to know, well, what platform did they build their website on? And their website has been built on Magento, okay, which is pretty cool. Having a look here, this is a $48 million a year brand, which is proper impressive. Let's head over to the 7th and final store that I want to show you that you can go ahead and model after, okay, and draw inspiration from. And this is one that by no means needs an introduction, and you would have seen that this brand has been around for a while. So let's head over and let's check them out. And of course, this is Fashion Nova. Fashion Nova has completely dominated. They've tapped into the influencer marketing game, and they are the $400 million business, which is insane. Completely crazy, okay? But this women's fashion brand has been on the radar for a long time. So you may be asking, okay, so what sub-apparel niche is Fashion Nova into? Well, what they're into is affordable fashion, right? And they have some really cool women's clothing, and you can see that they focus on a particular type of style, and they've got something for everyone, okay? And this brand has done $400 million in sales. They are built on Shopify and Shopify Plus for that matter. And what I'd like to do is make you realize that what they've gone ahead and done is that I promise you that a brand like this and all the other brands that we've spoken about before had done their homework. They knew exactly which market they wanted to serve in terms of geography, the location. Okay, they also figured out who they wanted to serve in terms of demographic. Was it men? Was it women? Was it children? What age group, etc., right? And this is quite often what people miss. Hey, you made it. I'm so stoked that you made it all the way to the end. If you've made it all the way to the end, yeah, and you're going to be probably one of the few, and you're going to be the action takers that actually get the most out of this free mini course. So I want you to go ahead and in the comment section, comment, I'm an action taker. And with that, we're definitely going to be spending a bunch of time together, and you're going to get a huge amount of value out of this. So I just want to praise you and thank you for making it all the way here and getting so much value out of this. With that, I want to just highlight what we're going to be covering in the next section. Now, the next section is going to be lesson 2 of 4 of this 4-part free mini course. Now, remember that in lesson 2, what we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and pick a niche together. Yes, we're going to actually go through and select a niche based on all the research and the trend data that we collected together in this video. Alongside that, what we're going to do is we're going to start to build out the brand identity, the brand colors, and so forth. And over and above that, we're going to go into part of the product sourcing and even the business model that we're going to pick. Because remember that products and business models are not created equal, and they're not the same thing. So we're going to have a lot of fun in the next lesson, as well as what's going to follow the next lesson, because lesson 2 is going to set the foundation for lesson 3. And lesson 3 is the one that I am most excited about. Lesson 3 is the one where we're actually going to take all of this research, all of this brand building, this ideation, and we are going to build our own online clothing store to sell clothes online, which is super, super exciting. So, and that is going to be the online clothing store that I end up giving away. So if you're excited about that giveaway, then remember to go ahead, check the link in the description that I'm going to leave there for you to enter this giveaway. And at the end of the 4-part mini series of this course, I'm going to give that clothing store away. Yes. So you stand a chance to win that clothing store already built, and you can literally just go and plug in your own products and connect your own payment gateways and get going and get started and just leapfrog your competition and just go after those goals and dreams that you're looking at achieving and accomplishing. So again, thank you so much. I'm super happy that you've made it this far. You're by far the 1% that is going to actually succeed. I completely believe that. So anyway, for now, look after yourselves, stay safe, stay well, and God bless.